Hey everyone, I'm back. Long time no see. It's Daniel here. And it's been over a year since I posted my last video about my journey to wellness. If you're not familiar with what that is, you can take a look back at some of the older videos I made. I think there's 3 of them. And it was the beginning, the very beginning of my journey to mental well-being. I started this journey with feelings of severe inadequacy and depression. And I decided to do something for myself, and it has been the best thing that I could have done, which was admit that I was having trouble in areas of life that many of us do, but it felt like the struggle was harder than it should be. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I might be struggling with more than just life itself, that I may be struggling with depression, as many of you might be able to relate. So I did the best thing that I could have done, which was first talk to my doctor. I saw my doctor, and he started me on some medication called sertraline, and it seemed like it was helping for a little bit, but then after a while it just didn't seem like enough. I started talk therapy with a certified therapist, and that didn't go as planned. It started off that he was a really nice guy, nothing against him, but I don't think our personalities quite meshed as well as they should, which is very important with your therapist, because you're going to be talking to them about, very personal, very deep things that you're trying to get help with. So a strong relationship and trust and all that is very important. Early on in my journey, around the time that I stopped giving update videos, things got really hectic for myself. Mostly trying to find doctors, trying to find therapists that worked out for me, and a great deal of lack of motivation to make videos. It just didn't sit high up on my priority list to do. Well, I'm coming back to you now. It's been over a year, and I wanted to give you a little update on what's happened. Shortly after my last visit with my first therapist, I came across the realization that I was struggling with more than just depression, that I also have ADHD. Now, this wasn't new to me. I was diagnosed as a child with ADD. In case you're wondering, there's no difference between ADD and ADHD. They are the same thing. For just sake of argument, the technical term now is ADHD. So that's how I'm going to refer to it as. As a child, I was diagnosed with it, and it didn't go much further than that. I took Ritalin as a child, and it helped, and things were great. I wasn't hyperactive. I was more of the inattentive, daydreaming, just staring out the window, not so much bouncing off the walls. No more than, an 8-year-old boy is going to do. What I didn't know about ADHD, though, is just how deep that rabbit hole really goes. And that it's not something that you really outgrow, which was what was told to me when I was younger, that as I get older, ADHD fades away and it disappears by adulthood. That couldn't be further from the truth. ADHD, if you have it and you've done diligent research on it, then you're starting to understand that it affects almost every aspect of your life. Just some examples is it affects your impulsivity control. Impulsivity control is what's responsible for you eating too much or eating when you're not supposed to. It's responsible for spending money that you should or shouldn't be spending. Those are just some examples of impulsivity control. Saying something that you really shouldn't at the time that you shouldn't. A good example of this would be telling your boss off because they said something that kind of irked you. Not the wisest decision. Other things that it affects, and where I have a big problem, is time management. Time management, motivation. There's a myriad of things that ADHD affects. Now, in coming to this realization that I did have ADHD and I had it as an adult and not a child, I was presented with a little bit of a dilemma because the majority of ADHD treatment is focused towards children, not so much adults. So adult ADHD is kind of still a specialized field. Not a lot of doctors think that ADHD exists in adults. A good example was my primary physician. He had no idea who to refer me to when I told him about this, and he didn't feel comfortable prescribing any medication to me without the diagnosis of a psychiatrist. So my journey took a turn for the long and grueling path. Mostly trying to find doctors that were well versed in understanding of ADHD in adults particularly. Led me to the current doctor that I have, and I have been seeing her for just about a year now. She's a wonderful doctor. She has really helped me in my path to recovery. Currently, we are still trying out several different medications. I'm currently being medicated for depression, mood swings, and ADHD. So far, things have been getting better. And the best thing that happened so far is just recently happened is I was able to get in touch with a special therapist that does what's called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short. Now, CBT is basically you learning about your thought process and understanding that your thoughts are what generate your feelings, your emotions. You don't have an emotion without a thought attached to it. For instance, if something happens, let's say you're just having a crummy day at work and you think, man, nothing's going right. Everything sucks. That's the thought that goes right through your head immediately. And because of that thought, you are now feeling that the day sucks, that it's going to be a crummy day. That's kind of understanding it in a nutshell. It goes a lot deeper than that, and I'm just now learning a little bit more about it. I'm currently doing something that I normally wouldn't do, which is reading a book. Although I have to admit, I'm not reading it myself. I'm actually using my phone, the speech feature on my iPhone, to read it to me. So it's kind of like a built-in audiobook. But the book is turning out to be very informative and seemingly helpful, to where I feel hopeful about my recovery. The book is called Feeling Good, and it's by Dr. David Burns. If you haven't heard of cognitive behavioral therapy, I would suggest taking a look at it. It couldn't hurt. It's a book. One of the interesting claims that has been made about the book is that its view on cognitive behavioral therapy has been shown to be as effective, if not more effective, than certain forms of medication for people with depression, anxiety, and so on and so forth. So I'm going through that right now, learning more about myself, and I've got to say what is really interesting is almost every scenario that this book is talking about, it's painting a picture of myself. And that kind of got me to stop and listen, because I always thought that, this whole power through positive thinking was just a bunch of bullshit. And I still kind of feel that way. I guess basically I feel like if I'm feeding myself bullshit, I don't buy into it. However, this book is making a lot of sense. The way it describes how I feel just so perfectly, to a T, describes how I feel about certain situations, and points out that those thoughts are not unique to just me. These are thoughts that a lot of people have, and that kind of gives you a little bit of or at least it gives me, a sense of relief that I'm not the first person to encounter this problem. And not only am I not the first person to encounter this problem, it's also really hopeful to know that a lot of these people that have the same problems that I do have gotten help. And they've gotten better. And they've done it through therapy, through this book, through medication. A combination of all of those things, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. There is a point at which you can look yourself in the mirror and say you're better. When people can see you, and they can see in your face, in your aura, that you are in good spirits, that brings me a lot of hope. I'm very hopeful that this is going to turn out for the positive. So hopefully, not to make too long of a video, I just wanted to basically come back to you guys and say thank you. Thank you for being there. All my friends, my family, everyone that has touched my life. I am thankful for your patience, your understanding, and your love. It's without it, this journey that I've been through would be absolutely impossible. Without knowing that I have some people in my corner. These are actually tears of happiness, which is nice. But really, this time I hope to be bringing you more videos, more information, and hopefully more positivity that will hopefully help somebody out there have that nudge, that little extra push that they need to get the help that they need to be having. One thing that has become abundantly clear in this journey, that I know that I'm not the first person to recognize this, that our society has too much of a stigma on mental health and not being in perfect mental health. It's just completely asinine to think that because somebody has a mental ailment that they are not as deserving, or that their plight is not legitimate because it's all in their head. Something that people tend to forget is that the brain is a physical organ, just like your liver, just like your kidneys, like your heart. It is a physical organ. Now, if somebody had heart failure or a heart attack, we treat them with sympathy, with understanding. We try to accommodate them. We try to make sure things aren't too difficult or too stressful for them, because we know the strain that it can put on their heart and that physical organ in their body. But what people tend to forget is that our brain, not our mind, but our brain, which that's where the mind lives, but our brain is a physical organ. And if it's not firing on all cylinders, if it's not making the connections that it's supposed to, that's no different than heart failure or kidney failure. So why would we view that ailment any differently? If you feel like you aren't quite yourself, do not feel ashamed. Please do not feel ashamed, because all this is a part of your body that isn't functioning quite the way it's supposed to. And that's okay. Nobody's perfect. No body is perfect. So if you stuck with me this long, guys, I want to thank you for watching. And like I mentioned before, I do really hope to be bringing you more videos and showing you what my progress is like. So far, I have to say I am quite a bit better than where I was a year ago. And I hope that this is encouragement that you can get better too. Well, guys, I want to thank you for sharing this journey with me. If you stuck out the video to the end, I really appreciate it. And if you do like this video, please, you know what to do. Give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, go ahead and subscribe. But for those of you that did stick it out, I got a little treat for you at the end. Until next time, take care of yourselves and be well.